Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. The show is designed to give you solutions to your day-to-day management and leadership problems. It's hosted by Matthew Haddock, a frontline manager and leader with over 25 years of experience. If you're ready, then let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. This week's show, we're going to look at the new era and what topics and training are on their way in 2024. So, without any further delay, let's get on with this week's show. Welcome everyone to a new year and a new era and a new show, which is what I promised we were going to be having throughout the year. If you're new to the show, welcome. As ever, thank you for downloading. I know it sometimes takes a little bit of time to do it. Press the button and then you get loads in your feed because you kind of sit there some nights, don't you, flicking through and thinking, what shall I listen to? I'm really going to get into X, Y and Z. It might be a hobby, it might be training, it might be personal development, mindset. And then you get these feeds dropping in and you think, oh gosh, what shall I listen to? Well, you've taken the first step by listening. And if you're an old-term listener who's been around a bit, thank you so much for keeping on listening and supporting the show. And thank you again for the emails you send. Every week, there's something exciting in the inbox to talk around. So that's the thank yous to the start of the show. I promised a new era. What was that about? In my last show, I talked about the fact that I'm looking at expanding myself and pushing myself and stretching myself to open up to more people, to offer more coaching, more development, more work that I can do with people. Again, nothing costing you much apart from an investment in time and an email. So if you are interested and you like what I'm doing, you like the show, you like the work, or you just want to kind of see what it's about, drop me a line to managermattpodcast@gmail.com. I've had a few people already interested, so the space will book up. So if you get a chance, do that. But what are going to be the topics before all this starts? Because you'll be thinking, well, it's all right, you saying all this stuff, but what actually are you offering? Well, let's have a think then. There's certain things that are immovable objects. We know those. There's lighthouses in the world, isn't there? There's these areas where they don't move, they're solid. Now, a lot of stuff can be moved around, or you can go through or under it and over it. But there's certain things I think are fundamental to how we lead people, how we manage people. But there's been a big debate around this idea of management and leadership. So this year, I want to split those two slightly and do a little bit of work around what that sounds like. So there's going to be fundamentals for managers. Now, of course, as with most things, these are not stuff that are just going to be, I am a leader now, it is in the title, therefore I will do X, Y and Z. Oh no, my title says I am a manager, I will do A, B and C. It's not how it works, is it? So a lot of the work that you're going to learn and listen to are going to be interchangeable. There's going to be a bit of that. So let's talk about the first one, the big five, which is what I started out 2-3 years ago. What are the big five? How do they work? Again, I won't be going into massive amounts of detail in this show because I'm interested in working with people individually about expanding their knowledge. But there is a lot of in the back catalogue which will give you some detail. And obviously, as I've mentioned, you can get in touch. But the first part is, what are the big five? Well, the big five are one-to-ones. So this idea of a planned time where you sit down with your directs and talk around 3 areas, around their home, around themselves, and then around their team and their projects, and then around their future and where they want to go. So that's the one-to-one. The second part of the big five is the feedback model. Feedback is something that I talk about being a gift. Well, it's a gift that doesn't get given enough. We all have a fear of feedback. Obviously, mostly negative feedback we fear. But a feedback model gives you a model to present feedback in a way that gets people on the same page, that they understand the strengths of what feedback does and how it can become natural part of a day. So there's a feedback model, which is the second part of the big five. Third bit, one of the most important things, and I did a bit of a poll on LinkedIn, and I'll be doing some more this year because you'll see me a lot more on LinkedIn, around delegation. And one of the big things that came up for delegations was the biggest thing people struggled with. And that's true when you come in new into management and you've been the doer, all of a sudden you're delegating, and there's that feeling of imposter syndrome oh, who am I? Who am I to tell this person I've worked with for years what to do? So delegation is another skill. It's something that needs to be developed. So delegation sits nicely in the middle of these big five, because those first three things like one-to-ones, feedback and delegation give you the strengths and character and skills to really deliver results. And that's what you're there to do as a manager, is to deliver results. The fourth one in the big five is delegation. It's not delegation. I've done delegation. It's coaching. So how do you coach people? You've got this good team. You're working on one-to-ones. You're giving them feedback. You've got good delegation, two-way street. But how do you coach them into that next level? How do you look at that idea of talent? So how do you coach those talented individuals? And those, obviously, at the other end. So coaching covers things like improvement plans. But that's a different way of thinking. So when you're a manager, you sometimes think, that person, I wish you were better. Now, if you've not got your feedback model right, you're not doing your one-to-ones and you're not delegating, they're never going to improve. But coaching is another part of the way a manager should think. And finally, it was called mentoring in the original one, and it's still mentoring in a way, because coaching and mentoring do go hand in hand. But it's almost like a counselling. The number of times a manager will be someone that can be talked to, can be opened up to, can talk and freely chat. So that's another part of those big five of management, and you'll have heard those before on the show. But what's new? Well, let's go another level away from those five. Let's talk around, if you are a good manager, you're doing those things right, what's that next step? All of a sudden, you start thinking and talking, and you'll hear in the ethos around leadership. What is leadership? What is the difference? Some people say managers are very tasks. We do X, Y, and Z, and I can agree with that a little bit, but I think there's more to it. But leadership is definitely slightly different. The higher you're going up in the organisation, your higher expectations are going to be that you're not just going to do the ticking the boxes and do the task lists, which is still important, they still deliver results, but you start looking at how do you lead? So how do you start to think around setting the direction? So how do you set direction as a leader? So one of the big fives in leadership is setting directions. And from setting directions, you're also setting standards. Now, managers set standards. As I say, there's crossovers. But what does a leader set? Standards for the business. It's a higher standard. Goals. How are you setting goals for the wider? You obviously a manager will set individual goals as part of delegation. But how do you do it around the bigger goals? How do you set the bigger whys the business is there? A leader does a lot of monitoring. There's a lot less doing as a leader goes up. You're doing more of the monitoring for results. So how are you going to monitor results? And from that, you hold people account from the way that you set goals. So monitoring results and holding people account go hand in hand. And the last part of it, in regard to this big five, is things like celebrating results and dealing with problems. So that's two sides of the same coin in a way. You need to celebrate. You've got to be able to celebrate as a team. And I'm talking about leadership celebrations here, so the bigger celebrations. How do you set people the right packages, the right things that motivate them, not just around money, but obviously around all the other things that goes inside leadership. And then that dealing with the problems when it doesn't go so well. So those are the things that we're going to expand this year. I'm going to expand this year as part of it. And those are going to be the fundamentals we'll talk around in the first part of the year. But to give you a taste of what else is to offer, because obviously, Manager Matt, I deliver, I give, I'm a giver. Christmas is gone now, but I'm still giving. What else are we going to talk around? So let me run you through just some titles, because I don't want this cast to go on too long, around what we're going to be talking around this year. Well, we've talked around the two big fives, going to do those. But then we're going to look at employment wellbeing. You'll probably notice there's been a lot around mental health on my channel in the past, and we're going to expand that. I'm going to talk about this humanity of leadership. So how do you be a human and a leader? It can be very difficult. There's lots of dichotomies, there's lots of pressures. But how do you remain human as a leader and a person? I'm going to talk about communication styles. Done it a little bit in the past, but where's that next level of communication? One of the big things you'll find in your careers, and if you're a manager and new to management, or you've been in management a lot, you'll be nodding your head, it's about conflict resolution. Because people, unfortunately, don't sometimes get on with people. I think they can definitely fall out pretty easily, and we sometimes don't learn from past mistakes. So conflict and conflict resolution, we'll talk around that a bit more. Change management. I've done some work on change, but I'd like to explore that a bit more with some of the readings I've been doing around how change can hit you and how you can cope with change and how you can prepare for change. Another topic for your diaries, emotional intelligence. How does that play a part? We know very, very clever people sometimes who don't have emotional intelligence. So how does emotional intelligence play as a manager and a leader? Problem solving. Done some work on problem solving. I'm going to expand that a little bit more with some more ideas about lean and lean problem solving. Going to look at collaboration. How do we work better with each other, more effective, more efficient? Accountability. How do we hold ourselves and others accountable? Building trust. I did one just before Christmas about trust and rebuilding trust, so I'd like to expand on that. And how you make decisions better as a leader. And the last one, well, not last one, but one of the other topics I'll be going into is inspiring others. So how do you become inspiring? How do you become that next step? So quite some grand ideas and grand plans for this year. So really looking forward to it. I'm going to be trying to get a few shows out every week. Going to expand it. As I say, some of the shows are going to be quite in-depth and going through some of these things and reliving and revisiting the way I've changed over the years around those ideas I mentioned earlier. Some of it, will be quite quick. And of course, if you, as I said at the beginning, if you want to expand some of those things, drop me a line. And of course, if you want to know more about the show, if you want to contribute to the show, if you want to come on the show, I'm always looking for guests to come on the show, then drop us a line because I'd really love to speak to you around your experiences as a manager and leader. Everyone has his own experiences. No one succeeds on their own. Everything's built around a team. And sometimes you need to remember that you are not a genius. I can say that, hand on heart. I'm not perfect. I'm not genius. You're not genius. Because we don't need to be. We all work collaboratively. We can all pool our ideas and get a better result than us individually on our own. Well, that's it for Manager Matt. As I said, if you need to talk to me, feedback's a gift. Drop me a line to managermattpodcast@gmail.com. Keep saying that quite a lot this year because I'd really love to engage it. If you want to do some one-to-one coaching, if you want to do a session, it's totally free. Drop me a line. Let's have a chat about where your issues are and how I can support and help you going into this new year. But that's it for Manager Matt this week. Thanks for listening as ever, and goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to this Manager Matt podcast. We hope you found it interesting, helpful and actionable. One last thing, please leave a quick review on iTunes or with your podcast provider as it helps to spread the word of Manager Matt. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you did like anything in particular, send an email to managermattpodcast@gmail.com or visit managermatt.co.uk for more content. Feedback is a gift, so let's keep giving. See you next week.